Welcome to the official English news broadcast of the Malankara Maruma Syrian Church. The Most Reverend Dr. Philippos Mar Chrysostom Martuma Valia Metropolitan was honoured as the perfect epitome of what God desires a human being to be during the 4th memorial lecture held at the Kumanad Martuma Valia Palli. Delivering the lecture, the Right Reverend Dr. Givargis Mar Kurlos Metropolitan of the Jacobite Syrian Church described the late Valia Metropolitan as a blessing to the Church with his vast knowledge and deep spirituality. He emphasized that the Valia Metropolitan devoted his life to the cause of transforming humans and called upon the Church and society to abandon casteism and work toward building a new humanity in Christ. The Most Reverend Dr. Theodosius Martuma Metropolitan presided over the meeting. In his address, he remembered the Valia Metropolitan as a visionary leader who courageously challenged conventional paths to address the pressing problems of human life. William Tirmeni was a propagator of humanity who called for social change, said Theodosius Tirmeni, adding, "The resources we have, rather than being hoarded, should be shared with those in need. If we work together, the basic needs of all can be met." He further highlighted the Valia Metropolitan's emphasis on fostering organic relationships with communities outside the Church, transcending barriers of caste and religion. Several key figures addressed the gathering. The Sabha Secretary Reverend A.B.T. Maman, the late trustee and treasurer Advocate Ansel Zachariah Komat, and the Reverend Dr. Daniel Maman, Sabha Council member and parish vicar, offered tributes and reflections. The clergy trustee, Reverend David Daniel, also participated in the memorial service. A special token of appreciation from the Church was presented to the Right Reverend Dr. Givargis Mar Kurilos by the Very Reverend K.M. Maman. The memorial meeting was accompanied by inspiring renditions from the choirs of Kumbanad Martuma Valiapalli and Erviperur Emmanuel Martuma Church. The year-long centenary celebrations of St. Thomas Teacher Training Institute Tiruvalla came to a blessed and meaningful conclusion with a vibrant closing ceremony. The Most Reverend Dr. Theodosius Martuma Metropolitan inaugurated the valedictory session, highlighting the transformative role of teachers. Teaching is not merely a job, but a service rooted in dedication, the Metropolitan said. He emphasized that educators must guide future generations toward both knowledge and spiritual enlightenment, empowering them to overcome the challenges of substance abuse and violence and become creative, responsible individuals. Swami Guru Ratnam Jnana Tapaswi, the General Secretary of the Shantigiri Ashram, delivered the keynote address encouraging educators to pursue holistic approaches to teaching. The ceremony featured the release of several publications, including Mahas Souvenir released by former Principal Mr. Shaji George, Institute's Directory unveiled by Municipal Chairperson Anu George, CD released by the Vicar General, the Very Reverend Matthew John, Nawaz edition released by the Very Reverend George Matthew, Shrey's edition released by the School Corporate Manager Mr. Kurula Matthew. The Reverend Sunil Chago presided over the prize distribution ceremony of the Mega Quiz. A heartfelt farewell was extended to the teacher-educator Mrs. Nancy Elizabeth Verghese in recognition of her dedicated service to the institution. The principal, Mrs. Mariam Thomas, the Reverend Jerin K. Matthew and Valagam John also addressed the gathering, sharing reflections and sincere gratitude. The Dalit Concerned Committee of the Martuma Yuvajana Sakyam conducted its youth study camp Pookalam Varavai Season 2 at the Adur Martuma Youth Centre with participation of over 125 youth members. The camp extended its support and solidarity to those affected by the ongoing violence in Manipur, urging for immediate peace and restoration of harmony in the region. The gathering emphasized the Christian responsibility to stand with the oppressed and marginalized during times of crisis. Significant resolutions were passed on various social issues, including environmental protection, the anti-drug campaign, safeguarding secular values, and advocating for Dalit Christian reservation rights. The Right Reverend Dr. Joachim Markurlo, Suffragan Metropolitan, inaugurated the camp. The Holy Kurbana was celebrated by the Right Reverend Dr. Matthews Mar Seraphim, Episcopa, Diocesan Bishop of the Adur Diocese. The central theme of the camp, a sense of identity and the freedom to be celebrated in Christ, was explored through worship, study and group discussions. The inaugural session, led by the Right Reverend Dr. Matthews Mar Seraphim, Episcopa, and the Very Reverend K.V. Cherian, was presided over by Reverend Dr. Abraham C. Puluntitta, the Vice President of the Yuvajana Sakyam. A special Senior Friends meeting was also held as part of the program, strengthening intergenerational dialogue. The General Secretary of the Yuvajana Sakyam, Reverend Binoy Daniel, and the Assistant Secretary, Reverend Mithun K. Chako, led the organizational aspects of the event. Justin Joseph Adur and Shaji A. served as a convener and the joint convener respectively, and Reverend Anil Abraham Pullard served as the chairman. Sessions and classes were led by Dr. Vinil Paul, Reverend Dr. Shibu Kurian, Reverend Mosen C. Verghese, Reverend Subin M. Matthew, and Sneha Susan Mathai. The 113th Maroma Students' Conference, held at the Tiruvalla Believers Church Convention Centre, witnessed a record participation with approximately 700 students attending from across the globe. The 4-day-long conference explored the theme Aspirations and Inspirations, AI for Life, through various sessions and discussions. Topics included Enliven Life Beyond Excuses, Real and Real, Youth Aspirations in Stories and Screens, and Grit and Grace, Real Life, Real Faith. The conference was inaugurated by His Grace the Most Reverend Dr. Theodosius Marthoma Metropolitan, who encouraged students to develop aspirations that can transform the world. The Vice Patron, the Right Reverend Matthews Mar Seraphim Episcopa, presided over the conference, and the Right Reverend Dr. Joachim Markurlo's Suffragan Metropolitan delivered the keynote address. A range of distinguished speakers, including clergy, artists and political leaders, shared their reflections. Notable speakers included Krishna Kumar, Mariette C.H., Pretty Abraham and the MLA Advocate Matthew T. Thomas. Reverend Robin Roy, Reverend Rency Thomas George and Alvin Alexander led Bible studies and thematic presentations. The final day featured a special address by Joseph Annamkutti Jose on the topic How Christ Became My Inspiration. The concluding Holy Communion service was officiated by the Vice Patron, the Right Reverend Matthews Mar Seraphim Episcopa. Students departed with a renewed sense of divine calling, committed to embracing new missions in service of God's kingdom. The 114th Maroma Students' Conference is scheduled to be held next year in Tirunelveli, as announced during the business meeting of the 113th Conference, which concluded at the Tiruvalla Believers Church Convention Centre. The conference president, Reverend Paul Jacob, presided over the business session. The Sabha Council of the Malankara Marthoma Syrian Church has released a comprehensive set of auditing and accounting guidelines aimed at streamlining financial and accounting procedures across the church. These guidelines have been formulated in accordance with the accounting standards, rules and regulations prescribed by the central government. The Marthoma Sunday School Samajan, the children's organization of the Marthoma Church, marked its 120th anniversary with Thanksgiving services and commemorative programs across its Sunday schools. Founded in 1905 with the inspiring motto, "Come to Jesus and bring every child to Jesus," the Samajam has grown into a vibrant faith movement, nurturing generations in Christian values. Today, it operates through 27 districts, 90 centers, 1,177 Sunday schools spread across 13 dioceses. To commemorate this historic milestone, Sunday schools around the globe organized a range of special events, including Thanksgiving prayers, honoring ceremonies, experience sharing sessions, tree planting, the setting up of memorial walls, and creative activities like painting competitions. Parish priests, headmasters, students and teachers participated enthusiastically in the celebrations, reflecting on the enduring impact of the Samajam's ministry. The main celebration was held at Ullanad Bethel Maroma Church and was inaugurated by the Right Reverend Dr. Matthews Mar Macarius Episcopa, President of the Sunday School Samajam. Parish Vicar Reverend Abraham Umman, former Central Vice President and Centre Inspector Professor Jacob Koshi, and the Headmaster Mr. Sanjit Abraham Thomas addressed the gathering, recalling the Samajam's transformative role in shaping faith and character in young lives over the decades. The commemorative programs were coordinated under the leadership of Reverend Sajish Matthews, General Secretary, Reverend Sanal Cherian, Assistant Secretary, T.G. Johnson, Vice President, and Matthewson P. Thomas, Treasurer. The schools under the MT and EA corporate management have once again demonstrated their commitment to academic excellence and holistic education with outstanding results in the recently announced SSLC examinations. A total of 13 institutions under the corporate management achieved a 100% pass rate, including schools in Kottarakara, Valagam, Tiruvalla, Edakkulam, Venmani, Karavalur, Chennapetta, Perumbavoor, Kottayam, Kirilam, Odara, Anaprambal and Thalavadi. The academic achievements of students were equally impressive, with 272 students securing A+ grades in all subjects. The top performing schools included Kottarakala School with 79 students scoring A+ in all subjects, Valagam School with 54 students, Patandita Marthuma School with 34 students, Venmani School with 22 students and Tiruvalla School with 12 students. Other notable achievements included Chennapetta and Perumbavoor, each with 18 students securing A+ grades in all subjects, Karavalur with 11 A+ students, Odara with 9 A+ students, Kundam with 7 A+ students, Anaprambal with 4 A+ students, Kottayam with 3 A+ students and Kirilam with 1 A+ student. Two other schools have recorded impressive results. Patandita Marthuma School achieved a 99.6 pass rate, while Kundam School followed closely with a 98.3% pass rate. These results reflect the dedicated efforts of students, teachers and school leadership in fostering academic excellence alongside character formation, a hallmark of the corporate management's educational vision. A new house was handed over to a less privileged family in Viyapuram, Alapura, whose residence was tragically destroyed in a gas cylinder explosion. The devastating incident left the family without a home, belongings or essential documents. Upon learning about the incident, the Most Reverend Dr. Theodosius Marthoma Metropolitan personally visited the family and initiated prompt action through the church's welfare program. The family's modest home, built on 5 cents of land with plank walls and a tin sheet roof, was completely destroyed in the explosion. All their belongings, including clothes, utensils, property documents and identity papers, were lost. The destruction of study materials belonging to their daughter, who was preparing for her SSLC examinations, was particularly heartbreaking. Miraculously, there was no loss of life, as the father was at work, the mother was at her job and the daughter was at school when the explosion occurred. Following the incident, the family was temporarily accommodated in a neighbor's house. The church's Abhayam Shelter Project came to the family's rescue, constructing a new house comprising 2 bedrooms, a hall, a kitchen and a toilet. The dedication of the newly built house was led by the Most Reverend Dr. Theodosius Marthoma Metropolitan in the presence of the Sabha Secretary Reverend Tebiti Maman, the Vicar General Very Reverend Matthew John and the Reverend V.S. Karia. This initiative is part of the Abhayam housing project launched in commemoration of the Metropolitan's 75th birthday. So far, 104 houses have been completed under the scheme, which aims to construct 150 homes for those in need. In a heartfelt tribute to the visionary leadership of the late Dr. Alexander Marthoma Valley Metropolitan, the Malankara Marthoma Syrian Church organized a memorial lecture in his honor. The event was held at St. Thomas Marthoma Church, Kuriyanur, the birthplace of the Valley Metropolitan, and featured a keynote address by Dr. Alexander Jacob, former Director General of Police. Delivering the lecture titled The Church Yesterday, Today and Tomorrow, Dr. Jacob highlighted the importance of the church operating with a long-term, future-oriented vision. He addressed pressing concerns such as the disintegration of the family system, challenges posed by migration and the evolving socio-cultural landscape affecting church life and witness. The event was presided over by the Most Reverend Dr. Theodosius Marthoma Metropolitan, who fondly recalled the life and ministry of the Valiya Metropolitan. He described him as a beacon of personal integrity, visionary leadership and value-based living, an enduring role model for both the church and society. Renowned for his commitment to interfaith respect and harmony, the Valiya Metropolitan consistently taught that affirming the greatness of one's faith should never come at the expense of belittling others. He also placed great emphasis on nurturing children and youth in the faith, expanding mission initiatives and establishing institutions that responded meaningfully to the needs of contemporary society. Prayers during the event were led by the Right Reverend Dr. Joseph Mar Barnabas, Suffragan Metropolitan, and the Parish Vicar, Reverend George Abraham. Key speakers included the Sabha Secretary, Reverend Tebiti Maman, Senior Vicar General Very Reverend Matthew John, and the late trustee Advocate Ansel Zachariah Komat. On behalf of the church, the clergy trustee Reverend David Daniel presented a memento to Dr. Alexander Jacob as a token of appreciation. The musical segment of the program featured special renditions by the choirs of the Kuriyanur St. Thomas Marthoma Church and Kuriyanur Marthoma Church, adding a devotional atmosphere to the occasion. Sabha Council members Tessie Abraham and Elizabeth Selina Koshi served as MCs, ensuring the smooth conduct of the event. The memorial lecture was well attended by the Sabha Council members, clergy, Mandalam representatives, and other faithful who gathered in gratitude to remember and celebrate the enduring legacy of Dr. Alexander Marthoma Valiya Metropolitan. May 10th marked a historic milestone with the consecration of the first Marthoma Church in Scotland, St. Andrew's Marthoma Church, Edinburgh. The ceremony was led by the Diocesan Episcopal, the Right Reverend Dr. Joseph Mar Evanius, and attended by prominent clergy including Very Reverend V.T. John, Reverend John Matthew C., Diocesan Secretary of the UK, Europe, Africa Diocese, Reverend Tabu Cherian, Vicar, Carmel Marthoma Church, Liverpool, Reverend John Pichaco, Vicar of Tabor Marthoma Church, Manchester, Reverend Subin Matthew Parel, Bishop Secretary, and Reverend Merrin Matthew, Vicar of St. Andrew's Marthoma Church, Scotland. Also present were Reverend Scott Burton, Minister of Brighton's Church, Church of Scotland, and Reverend Christine Downing, Rector of St. Mary's Episcopal Church, Dalmahai. The consecration service began with a solemn procession around the church, followed by a public meeting and fellowship dinner. The event brought together members from across the UK diocese celebrating a long-cherished dream come true. The St. Andrew's Marthoma Church has a rich legacy dating back to 2001, when it began as a small prayer group under the leadership of the Very Reverend Dr. Sham P. Thomas. It became a congregation in 2003 and was elevated to a parish in 2021. The parish consists of prayer groups spread across Edinburgh, Glasgow, Kirkcaldy, and Aberdeen. This momentous occasion marks a significant chapter in the journey of the Marthoma community in Scotland and the broader UK diocese, reflecting its growth, resilience, and rooted faith. The annual assembly of the Diocese of North America of the Marthoma Church recently conducted a 2-day session at Christos Marthoma Church, Philadelphia, under the presidency of the Right Reverend Dr. Abraham Mar Paulos Episcopa. In his inaugural address, the bishop exhorted the faithful to live out their calling as a witness of Christ, faithfully proclaiming his message across the globe. The assembly also marked a significant milestone, the 20th anniversary of the bishop's episcopal consecration, honoring his 2 decades of dedicated spiritual leadership and service. Key highlights included the presentation and approval of the annual report, financial statements for 2024-25 and the budget for 25-26. Best Parish Awards and Merit Awards were presented to deserving parishes and individuals for their outstanding contributions. Reverend Joel Samuel Thomas was elected as the new Diocesan Secretary. The Assembly also commended the Church's impactful mission efforts, including the Light to Life Project, Neighborhood Mission and the Hope Initiative, recognizing their continued influence on the Church and the wider community. The session concluded with a benedictory message from the Diocesan Bishop, who offered his blessings and pastoral guidance to the faithful. With that, we come to the end of the news. Thank you for joining us. We'll bring you more updates on the Maroma Syrian Church's activities and initiatives. Good day to all.